So today I would like to tell you about the big transformations that happen on Earth between the Precambrian and Cambrian limit. And yeah, so I also asked you to be indulgent and tolerant with me because I'm a geologist, but I finished my studies of geology in 2010. And I had the opportunity to work on microalgae biotechnology after my PhD. So I'm something in between. I'm not a geologist anymore because I leave it behind me since 2010. Now I'm working in microalgae biotechnology, but I'm not fully a biologist, so I'm not the... That's why I like to say I'm biogeochemist. I'm only bio, not biologist. I'm geo, not geologist. But yeah, so I'm very anyhow enthusiastic about the power of these microorganisms, and I would like to tell you, yeah, some of the important transformations they made on Earth. Okay, so this presentation links algae, oxygen, and water. So in the Precambrian, the dominant life forms on Earth were anaerobic bacteria for a deeply long period. And suddenly, some of these organisms exposed to the sun at the surface of the water mutated. So they initiated photosynthesis, and they were organized in microbial mats, as we see here in the picture below. This is that we know from the fossil record as an stromatolite. And yeah, so they initiated photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide was really abundant, and they found a way, thanks to the solar energy, to transform it into glucose and oxygen. And this oxygen, which is a powerful reactive and oxidizing molecule, first reacted with the elements present on Earth, so on the rocks, and actually massive amounts of carbon oxides deposited on the ocean at that time. So this was 3 billion years. The oxygen could start to rise in the atmosphere and gave birth that is known as the Great Oxygenation Event. So this event really deeply transformed the Earth because the oxygen, so this new gas, put pressure on this anaerobic community dominating the Earth. And then for them, adaptations were needed to deal with this toxic molecule for them. And slowly aerobic metabolism start to appear following an increase in oxygenation on the deeper levels of the ocean. So the ocean was stratified, so it was not iron and sulfur were abundant in the lower level, in the deeper levels, and in the surface it started oxygenation. So, okay, then we can say that primary productivity has started, but what was the real innovation with this oxygenation, or actually with the photosynthesis process? I think we can say with any doubt that the ability of these the photosynthetic microorganisms to produce their own food. So they became actually a high energy carbon source. So they produced their own food, but they became at the same time really a high energy carbon source. Also, okay, so this carbon fixation and transformation into carbohydrate is a process that is known as the Calvin cycle. The goal of this metabolic pathway is to generate this molecule that is called G3P. And important here is to know that this molecule is stored into carbohydrates, and carbohydrate is actually a reserve of energy. Then we can say that these new photosynthetic organisms were the first super rich biological material on Earth. Okay, so with photosynthesis, the carbon cycle started, and because in nature there is no things like waste, the respiration process became an evidence, because the products of photosynthesis are the inputs for respiration, and at the same time the products of respiration are cycled back in the photosynthesis process. So we see, for example, oxygen produced by photosynthesis is needed to break down the carbohydrate molecules by respiration, and the CO2 produced by respiration is used is absorbed to generate actually the carbohydrates. So, okay, as I say, photosynthesis is this conservative process which absorbs the energy to build the carbohydrates in chloroplast, and the cellular respiration in opposite release the energy by using this oxygen to break down the carbohydrate molecules. Cellular respiration using oxygen produce much more energy than the former anaerobic respiration that was dominating the Earth. And this step was really essential to sustain the energetic needs needed for more complex forms of life. Okay, so coming back now to the established primary producers on Earth, as I said, this rich biological material, it was an excellent way to obtain carbon, because they were really super rich material. A new behavior appeared on Earth, and this was predation. So the predation was needed because for example, it was a pressure for these anaerobic microorganisms, and they had to specialize to deal with this new toxic molecule for them, that was the oxygen. So in the figure here at the right, we can see an anaerobic prokaryote engulfing an aerobic bacterium. This aerobic bacterium was able to survive inside the cell and evolve later into mitochondria. In the same way, photosynthetic bacterium has been ingested as well by these larger cells and evolved later into chloroplast. So here we can say, So we can say that predation really was a behavior that allows this specialization on cells, and then the eukaryotic organisms were born, and they nourish as well other developing organisms that was developing for example, at the bottom of the ocean, like sponge and other filter feeding benthic animals. So in this new world where predation became the rule, how to be big enough to escape predators. Okay, so another innovation was required, and actually was really urgently needed, because for unicellular cells there is a limitation to the size. At some point, the surface of the cell is not large enough to allow the necessary exchange to maintain active metabolic pathways in the voluminous cell. So it's a ratio between surface and volume that becomes smaller and smaller. Then the multicellularity became the answer for this, and we can see here at the left the results of an experience of with actually a unicellular microalgae was cultured with a predator. So this is in the B column. So it was an stress. And here in the A column, we have a typical life cycle of the algae without. So here in A, they were cultured without any predator. So normal, non-contaminated culture. So when they reproduce, they divide in unicellular cells. But in B, because of the presence of the predator, they divide in clusters. So they were embedded in an extracellular matrix, and a cell wall could be identified. And we see that really this predation induced again another innovation, and that was the multicellularity. But multicellularity also brings other specialization. So the cells some of the cells became specialized, and we see, for example, some motility or feeding aspects. And for example, we passed from this Ediacara fauna that was very flat and just stick on the bottom of the ocean to a more active fauna with diggers, grazers in the Cambrian. Okay, so now here so this multicellularity gave birth to the first phase of animal diversification. So we are here at the doors of what is known as the Cambrian radiation of life. At that moment, so in the early Cambrian, all animal phyla that we know were already present. And also very interesting is actually that a diversity of body appear with crazy architectures and more complex forms. So of course, that trigger this diversification was still this increasing in oxygen. So at that moment, the increase in oxygen could achieve really the levels that we have today. And this was also helped by the breakup of a supercontinent. So the supercontinent was the Rodinia supercontinent, and what is actually the predecessor of Pangea. And this Rodinia, when it breaks up, actually you generate more continental margins, so you allow more active tectonics, and these tectonics overwhelming, for example, the organic matter deposits. So as the organic matter was not available to interact with oxygen, the oxygen could accumulate in the atmosphere. So also, okay, these important changes happens as well in the chemistry of the oceans, and we will in this early Cambrian we start to see the first biomineralized forms. Okay, so here the question could appear very simplistic. So carbonates and photosynthesis, a recipe for bonds. Okay, it's very simplistic. However, this mineralization, calcification process can be addressed by the relationship that exists between these two processes. In the eukaryotic world, the amount of primary producers, actually these photosynthetic organisms, increase, and of course the oxygen as well, as I say, but also in the deeper levels of the ocean. And another thing, it was that in the eukaryotic world, the sinking of organic matter was higher. So we can see that at that moment, this biological pump was in place. And of course, this has an impact in biomineralization, but this occurs in different steps. For first, the calcium carbonate formation was facilitated because when you have photosynthesis, you absorb the dissolved CO2 species from the water. Then you start to increase the pH, and when you increase the pH, you have also more alkaline conditions that favor this assembly of the calcium cations and the carbonate anions. So this was one of the reasons. Another reason is actually that you can also start to produce the calcium carbonate by nucleation, because the organic tissues that are present in these organisms have negatively charged radicals. And, for example, proteins and polysaccharides, then the calcium cation can easily bind. So you start by nucleation, you start to form, is actually the beginning of this crystallization. And, and also, as I said before, this important sinking of organic matter also take the carbonates into the deeper portions of the water in the oceans. So you have this beautiful process that is that it's informally called marine snow, and it's it's really it's quite beautiful. If you have the opportunity to go for diving, it's something beautiful. Okay. Now, so to summarize a little bit, in this, in the Precambrian, also at the late, in the late Proterozoic, you have it was the first development of organisms that were soft-bodied, and when we pass at this early Cambrian radiation. That happened 540 million years ago, you start to have the first mineralized fauna. Okay, then this so the diversification, but also the size increase, of course, requested for more supporting and locomotive structures for the animals. Because you increase in size, you have to stabilize somehow. And so another thing, so here for this skeleton formation revolution, you have different factors that combine. So also very important, it was in this Ediacaran Ocean, you have an excess of calcium cations, and this was, as I said, this was induced by the breakup of the Rodinia supercontinent. So you have to start, you have more active tectonics. This calcium was highly abundant, and so. For example, studies say that the concentrations were higher than 18 millimolar, as the modern oceans has less than 11, for example. Then you have this combination of factors. So you have, for example, a biotic factor that is also the appearance of adhesive complex molecules, especially like chitin or collagen, and also the extracellular matrix. And these substances have really high affinity, high chemical affinity for the metal cations. So this was the biotic factor, but you also have the abiotic factor, that was the excess of calcium in the Diacaran Ocean, and with an increase in the oxygenation as well of the water. And then you have the deposit of limestones that are actually the calcium carbonates, but also frequent dissolution. So formation of carbonates and dissolution were cycled, and you have always this excess of calcium, and the calcium could, we say that certainly deposit in the integumentary tissues of the animal. So that means the outer layer of the body. And thanks to the organized proteins inside the organisms, the calcification starts to appear. So the details of this I don't tell because it's more complex. But important message here is why we talk about microalgae today. I think the important is that we need to support more resilient bioeconomies. So microalgae led to food webs with more efficient nutrient and energy transfers. They drive actually the ecosystem toward increasingly and more complex organisms. The glucose and the oxygen, for example, transform the earth into the paradise that allows humans to evolve. And these microalgae are simple solar-driven cell factories. They are very efficient in converting organic and inorganic carbon into valuable products. So they really, if we harness the power of these microorganisms, we can really cover the pressing issues we are facing today in the climatic transition. For example, the production of alternative foods, the recovery of weight, the recovery of water, atmosphere regeneration, or waste reclamation as well. So this, for example, this is the purpose of the MELISA project, that is the microecological life support systems for human exploration. But we don't need to apply these concepts to allow another planet to be more hospitality, with more how you say? Livable. Let's say livable for us. We can really apply this concept in our planet. So I think material and energy flows can be more efficiently used if they are not disrupted or disconnected, but kept in the closed loop system that nature has shown us. I think really the message is that we don't. We need to respect material and energy flows and leave it in this closed loop system. Nature shown us this way of functioning. So 2 years ago appeared an interesting article that was called Priorities for Ocean Microbiome Research. And I think, yeah, this is quite a lot of information, but but I think the message here is that really ocean microbiomes are sustaining our world. And just to give you a fact, in the ocean biome, 2/3 of the biomass, it's microbiomes. So 2/3 of the whole biomass of the oceans is really microbes, actually. So I think it's crucial to put focus on these water microbiomes, because their understanding can really help us to advance proper strategies to address the environmental and societal challenges we are facing in this climatic transition. Okay, as I say, so just like a take-home message, these microbes participate in nutrient cycles. They remove big quantities of CO2, and they sustain food webs. So yeah, I think if we put focus on this revolution, I think is important for us. Okay, what we are doing, or what we are concretely doing with this with this microalgae biotechnology. So there are some concepts that we have under exploration in the agri-food sector. So here, for example, so they are really they are my God, I cannot. They are embedded in this economy, circular economy we have. So. For example, we take effluents from the food industry, like so in the project apropos that is called algal proteins on potato streams. We use, for example, the wastewater from the industry food as a substrate to grow the microalgae, and so we have like a right mix of these different effluents. So, for example, whey from the dairy industry, and by a combination of these, we can produce our biomass, and finally, with a small downstream processing, use it for animal nutrition. There is also the Way to Blue project with a dairy industry here in Switzerland, where we use the whey permeate from the process, from the dairy, for example, from the yogurt process, and this water that has to be treated is used for production of microalgae, and then cycled back as an ingredient, a nutritious ingredient for these dairy products. For example, we can have more proteins or more polyunsaturated fatty acids like omega-3. And of course, there are other concepts beyond. So this is, we have here at the right is the future, because what's the idea with microalgae? So the idea with microalgae is to avoid these problems that we have with traditional agriculture. So the land use, so we need to use less land, so we have pressure on these resources, water resources, pressure for the land, pressure for the nutrients as well. So the idea is to recycle the nutrients on the waste streams, having smart architectures, for example, suspended photobioreactors over crop fields, because some agricultural products, for example, need this partial shadow, so you can have these suspended solar collectors, or you can have floating system on the ocean, on lakes. And yeah, this is another concept, for example, for the aquaculture, where we also help in the treatment of the water for the production of fish, but we also use the algae biomass for making bioplastics and food as well for the fish. So the idea is to really work to respect the cycle of the materials and to try to be to work in this, to share this phrase that I found on LinkedIn that is very interesting. So we have a finite environment, the planet. Anyone who thinks that you can have infinite growth in a finite environment is either a madman or an economist. Thank you. So if you have questions.
Do we have questions?
It was too fast, maybe, right?
30 minutes. Anyone have a question?
You have questions.
Maybe I have one. You said it goes to smart, but it also goes to productivity, right? No. So, do you think really this is respecting also the life cycle of natural environment if we start to be more and more condensed spaces, smarter and smarter, so-called smart technologies? Having this layer of like crop and then algae culture and all that. Is it a question you have also at the...
It's a synergistic way of production, but it's still production. It's still production. However, I think thanks to these closed systems, we can really limit the resources needed, because we can recycle the water many times, not infinite times, but many times. And yeah, we can really, we have a life cycle assessment that we did recently for our technology, and we can really have like 20 times less water that compared, for example, with the production of soybean. So thanks to the closed system, we can really more efficiently use the water, also the nutrients, because, for example, when you add fertilizers on a field, half of them are not used. Half of them finish in the rivers, on the lakes. And thanks to the closed system, you can be sure that you are in a nutrient neutral production. So you need technology, but you can really decrease the use of these sensitive resources, I would say. But yeah, it's a synergistic. The idea is to operate in a synergistic way. Because, for example, the idea to put these collectors is because sometimes you have to combine two types of trees, because some for example, for how you call it, for petit baies, you need some shadow
berries,
for the berries. You need shadow. So the idea is to provide, to combine as best as possible the two productions.
Maybe I have a related question. It might be silly or naive, probably, but is that how you think you can move that fast between the analysis of processes that took millions of years of evolution to something that you can actually manipulatively use in a production environment? I don't know.
It's a good question. So, yes, actually, yeah, it's a philosophical question. I don't know how to answer this, but it's true. I mean, we are just observing how this happen, and actually, yes, we have to be inspired by that. Mm-hmm. So we would like to biomimic this, biomimic the nature, but it's true that somehow we are in an acceleration. Yeah, I agree. I have to say I agree. Yeah. But it's interesting. It's very interesting because it is
destruction too. So.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but then we also had a question, maybe it's naive. So there was this big change with photosynthesis because we are changing the chemistry of planet Earth, what we call the Anthropocene. So shall we go to another major change? And I mean, I don't talk about us, but about Earth. Shall we go to a major change as we see in the Precambrian, for instance? It's possible that there will be because life is just going on. And life is something that pursue. That,
yes.
So there is, for sure, there will be a major change, but don't you think?
Yes, at some point we will have a major change, but we have to be conscious that we are also accelerating things, as we said, actually. And then we shouldn't. I mean, life is robust enough always, and life adapts. And then it's also it's a compromise between adaptation and I mean at the end life shows that those that continues is those that adapt. So there is an adaptation, but we also have to be careful about acceleration process. Yes.
Thank you, Mariluz. It's 7. I suggest we
move to
second session, and I hope it's also connected. It was a particular purpose. Somehow, see some forms in the images you were showing that we might find some remembrance in the artwork of Cédric Pigot and Magali Daniaux. So I'm happy to welcome Cédric and Magali. They've been participating in the exhibition of Plants that just closed last week. They are based in Lecomte, Zürich, in West France. They are interested in the impact of climate change with cultural, socio-economic and strategic backgrounds, as they are in ancestral practices close to nature or the latest avatars of technology. So at the crossroad of the organic and the digital, the composite practices includes sculptures, installations, drawing, collage, performances, or poetic or literary text, even science fiction tales. They also founded a publishing house called Luma Edition. And as respondent, we will have Clémence Seurat, publisher and associate researcher at the Media Lab at Sciences Po in Paris. I will not go too deep into your bio, as well as Jérémy Lecomte, who is also working researcher and theoretician, working between philosophy, art and architecture and urban studies, are currently working at the Versailles at the National Superior Architecture School. Sorry.
The architecture school.
Okay, so I think Magali and Cédric will introduce their work, and then we can have a conversation. And we have to
Maybe you
take a
introduce?
call. Thank you.
Maybe I think I don't know if you the subject of the exhibition. It's called like More Than Planet. It was addressing a crucial question about a crucial notion that is Anthropocene, and to show how this concept was proposed in the 90s by the chemist Paul Crutzen is not like just a scientific word and a scientific concept and notion. It has been traveling a lot in the art world, for example, for more than a decade, from 2013, for example, and an important event that took place in Berlin in Haus der Kultur in der Welt. And of course, it has been discussed by artists and by social science as well. Why? Because just the word of Anthropocene is very interesting to deconstruct and to analyze. Because it's not, so the idea of this notion is that human activities are becoming as a geological force. It means that the human activities are just transforming the world more than what geology is doing to the world. But the very tricky thing with this notion, it's like it's just addressing the responsibility of humans with this anthropos. And so, of course, if we have like a political perspective on this term, on this notion, we should ask who is this anthropos. And so there are lots of perspectives on that, and maybe we could start with you, Jeremy, with like a first question, because you're analyzing, doing theory on ecology, and of course this notion is very important. And maybe you could add, because if we say there is an Anthropocene, so anthropos, who is anthropos? It's like human activity. It's like the weight man. Is that a capitalist world? Who is this anthropos, and what critical perspective or criticism could we put on this word?
Yeah, I think you're totally right to raise the question that when we talk about the Anthropocene, it actually raises the question of knowing what is the anthropos we're talking about, right? And I think that's the first question. That would be, the main epistemological question in a way. And then you have another question, I think, that comes with talking about the Anthropocene, which is a question of temporality, which is a question of dates, basically. Mm-hmm. And I think the two somehow are related, mm-hmm. and I think that's what we saw recently with the fact that the Geological International Society met again, because in geology the concept is still not endorsed, right? So it has been proposed the first time in 2000, and then it has been discussed a lot in the arts, a lot in the humanities, etc. But in terms of geology, really, it has been discussed several times. And so recently, it was again discussed. And the main question was, because for it to be endorsed by geology, you have to cope with the terms of that science. And so you have to be able to identify what they call like a golden spike, thank you. So the idea of this golden spike is where can you locate a change in the actual stratification of the Earth, in the actual geological stratification. And what we realized is that while all those scientists seemed, and that was the kind of tragicomic aspect to it in a way, is that they seemed to have gathered last year, and when they were interviewed after why you didn't endorse, pretty much everybody said well, we don't really know, because actually we thought we should endorse it. So there was this idea of, they came to the meeting mainly saying we should endorse it, and they went away not really knowing why. And I think when you dig a little bit into that, you realize that it's mainly for the political or geopolitical implications of that concept that it wasn't endorsed within geology itself. Because the question of knowing where you would put the golden spike implied a question about who was responsible and who was the anthropos we're talking about. And of course, in this case, the US were really vocal about it, it seems, because the main consensus seemed to be that it could be associated to the first nuclear test, so the first nuclear weapons test in the 70s, 60s, 50s, sorry, 70s. And 70s is more the French one. So this means something like that. And so I think it's interesting to see that even within a science as, in a way as serious and taking its time as geology, that you see that the political load and even the geopolitical load of that concept is coming back. Because in this case, it seems that the US was, in a way or another, pressuring to say, well, if you are recognizing this golden spike at that moment in time and space, then it would mean that the US are the main responsible for the Anthropocene. And why we're talking about the Anthropocene to talk about the human responsibility in global warming, of course you can understand what the problem it brings, because then it could be translated also to the COP, for instance, meetings, right? So I think maybe I'll stop there, but I think it's interesting to see that you have different, with the question of knowing when did the Anthropocene started, comes the question of knowing what is the Anthropos we're talking about. And that's why many researchers recently have proposed alternative terms, such as Capitalocene, for instance, to identify, the beginning of the Anthropocene, not with the Anthropos in general, so not with humanity in general, but with the birth of capitalism under the Industrial Revolution, especially in Great Britain. That's in the work of Andreas Malm or Jason Moore, for instance. You have others who have insisted on more feminist dynamics, for instance, so arguing again about different dates and different relationships in order to put forth a different responsibility in the whole system. Or Jason Moore himself actually advocated recently for talking about something that would be the Plantatiocene, to talk about plantation, the plantation economy, and how it restructured everything at the moment of the slave trade in America. So each time this question is brought to the fore, and I think that makes probably the richness of this concept of Anthropocene was qualities to say, well, there is a massive implication of human activities on the planet, but you have to be careful of then distinguishing what activities we're talking about and who are the humans we're talking about when we talk about that.
And so, you said like one of the beginning of this geological epoch could be like the nuclear test in the 50s. So and other dates to start the Anthropocene could be the end of the 18th centuries with the beginning of Industrial Revolution. And of course, there is another proposal to start the Anthropocene end of 15th century, beginning of the 16th century, with what is called the Columbian Exchange. That is to say, when Spanish European went to Americas and saw the genocide of about 50 million Indians there, can be seen in the geological strata. And at this time, with the genocide of so many people and the exchange of plants and different biota between two continents at such a scale, is like the very beginning of somehow a globalization and a global transformation of our Earth. So maybe it was like a small introduction on this term before we are talking about Magali's and Cédric's work. Maybe we could start with the artwork you were presenting in the More Than Planet exhibition, because I see it like it's somehow a landscape, I would say like an anthropogenic landscape, or a landscape of the Anthropocene. And because you were collecting during your travels a lot of objects, a lot of plants, rocks, different types of species, and you mix it with your own artistic creation. And I know you're working this artwork for quite a long time, for many years now, and it has been evolving through times. So maybe could you present us this artwork that is called Crash POLI, and how you were working on it, and how it has been evolving? And why it, and do you agree to present it as like an Anthropocene landscape or something like that?
Because yes, us as artists, of course we read, we are very interested in many topics, but we are also very we work with intuition also, and but before we call this way of working the landscape herbarium. And then it started because Cédric and I, the last decade, we worked together in the Arctic region, and we were concerned by climate change, but also the commodification of life, but also geostrategic issue, and during this all this decade after this work, we were really in conscience that the world that is work was going to fall apart, and it created for ourselves quite anxiety also, I guess. So we start to collect biological material or stones, but small. Not we didn't harvest.
Not a new exchange.
Yeah, but and it starts also to keep. Cédric and I, we tend to have a poor memory, so we start to collect also this object just as a reminder of the place we work, and like a trigger for our own memory. So it starts with a bit of stuff that concern us very selfishly, but then this this collection, it's not sometimes it's a very poor grass or a very fragile flower, that just one that we try to keep in good shape, and then after it evolved, this way of collecting, but we collect only the place where we worked, or it's for remarkable moment we were living together, and but then we start to do ceramics together, and then we mix them with ceramic. We produce sometimes vessels for them, or just accompany them with ceramics, or to sometimes it can be a pedestal even, or some, and lately it has changed also. So we are creating more like sci-fi. Cédric and I, we work on imagination. We are on the side of imagination, and this, it's not really sci-fi, because sci-fi is a projection of our world later, but it's more like we try to imagine like another layer of our world that can exist somewhere, like at the same time of ours. For instance, there is an object like, you can put that, the radiopyramid. Some object where there is no biological material but only ceramics. It's also for us, this, for instance, it's a very cutting-edge technology. This object, it's called radiopyramid. And it could be a transmitter or something, but not in our world, but in another world. I mean, it's not another world, but it's like a parallel. We imagine also how technology can be. It's also thinking about technology, how it can be. How we can imagine it. I mean, it's really poor design we have of technology, really. It's not fun. It's not, I mean, respectful. It's, I think we have a poor imagination when it comes to our technology. And Cédric and I, we work on that and try to imagine, for instance, this fantastic computer we have. Voilà. Hop. These are the first, it's a kind of, it's not a computer, but let's say a calculator, like to calculate, or a keyboard. Mm-hmm. But with the finger that come out, something like that. So sometimes it's with humor we work on. But it's true that this way of presenting our collection, and the collection also evolved a lot, because we pick some new stuff, and some also of our collection are very fragile, so we also lose some, even if we try to really keep it still.
I think the technological artifact or device you're presenting in Crash Poly reminds me very beautiful quotes of Paul B. Preciado, who was writing a few years ago, I think it was during the lockdown, that if we had been spending it will be difficult in English, but because we were spending, some humans on the earth were spending so much time to look into the ground, to open mines and to extract minerals and a lot of material from the earth and from the ground. And if we have been spending so much time that we spent for extracting this material into looking into, for example, photosynthesis, maybe just now we could be like lightening the sittings during the night thanks to the trees.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very like a speculative thing, but it's really so connected with science. What we, where do we focus on scientific research, and we can have and we can open up imagination of what we could do with technology. So.
Yeah, and there is technology, but in art there is also the aesthetic. Just that, the aesthetic feeling you have seeing an artwork that you just think, wow, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And this counts a lot also. I mean, it's just, we think, of course, a lot of stuff, but when you do an artwork, you don't want to send a message like that, or you write a book. Mm-hmm. And so aesthetic experience is very important for us, and that's what we try to provide to the people who see our work, who collect them. Mm-hmm. So it's not only intellectual. For that, we have our publishing house where we propose thought directly through our book.
And this is why you are mixing a lot of media in your work. So different type of material in the sculpture, for example, like concrete and ceramics, and then drawings and lots of media. Maybe you could.
Yeah, we use different media. First, we are two, and we are working together since more than 20 years now. So. Somehow, 20 years, you really need to reinvent yourself, or to sometimes to try something new, just to experience, and you're scared, or when we do performances, for instance, it's something very good to be on stage and to share at the special moment with the audience this experience. Because when you do, as an artist, to do sculpture, for instance, or drawing, it's different. You don't share the same energy. Okay, you have an opening, the people came to, but it's not as strong the sharing and the moment as we can have in a performance with the audience. So this multiply our experiences also, our feeling, and depends on what we are focused on at this time. We had different period. 20 years is a long time, so we had different period, and when we start to work in the Arctic area, our artwork tend to dematerialize. We worked on the sound pieces, documentary for radio, VR piece. But VR, it was special because actually I don't know if we like it too much. This media, it's very solitary. You know, you are by yourself. All the people are waiting to get their experience too. So there is a line. You need the people to gear the people up.
People get sick because
people get sick with But for this piece, we thought it was a perfect media actually, because it was in the Google. You have in the helmet of Google. You experience a reproduction of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, which is the vault to keep a double of all the seeds for food from all around the world, and so and then you are alone in this. You can walk, you can lose yourself, but you are alone when you experience that. And in our seed vault, when you enter, you will see that there is no seed in it because we think it was already robbed by the agribusiness stakeholders. And so it's empty, but what we decide to keep in that vault, it's a poem. So at the end of the vault, there is this object, this living object, which you don't know if it's a plant or if it's a fish, and this object broadcasts the voice of the last human on planet Earth, and you can hear this. That's the reason why it was really cool that you experienced that in VR, because and you are alone in both ways. You are alone here, and with So for this media, voilà. Mm-hmm. And for this, so we tend to choose also the media we want to work on, following the topics we are working on. Depends.
And I think it's you adjust the media you're using to maybe the different periods in your life or what you are thinking or imagining, because there you had all these dematerials and digital technologies, media, to talk about what you call the fridge world. I really love this expression.
The fridge world.
Yeah, the fridge world. You were doing some work.
The fridge world. This is 10 years of work where we were trying to working on controlled environments, and but also the fridge world is a promise of death and eternity, like this, like the vault. So for us, the fridge world is really that, this controlled environment where you have AC, preserving, this notion of keeping, preserving, and maybe that's the reason why we try to we collect stuff after all this experience of preservation, because a preservation in a fridge like that or in a seed bank, it's a strange way of try to work on keeping biodiversity. I mean, this surely is an epiphenomena, because if you, I mean, to have more diversity, you just need to plant.
Yeah, and usually, like, nature is preserving or perpetuating the biodiversity on Earth, or the genetical diversity with reproduction or regeneration, and not taking taking some genetic material.
This experience with Cédric, we want, and the materials also our work. We wanted, we wanted to find some fracture in the world we were facing, and that's the reason why we start to work with. It's more on the side of the myth, new myth. Lately, Cédric and I, we are more interested in that, creating stories or.
I don't. Go for it.
I have a question. Is it not also kind of going deep past and not only new myths or new future? Or
yeah, also.
Deep past artifacts, reconnecting also what Mariluz was talking about.
Yeah.
First life forms,
first technology also, like sometimes, no, but
life is a very advanced technology.
It is, of course. It is. That's the reason, it is. That's the reason why we are always amazed just at looking at the shape, even at the complexity also of the colors. Everything is fantastic. I mean, if you just look at it. But, maybe deep time. We are searching something that can help us just live to this world, actually, and we try to share it with the audience and help them also to live in the world.
No, go for it. I can.
You were looking into like ancient rituals that maybe you could update. For example, all the ceramic spiders you were doing when you are creating, because you are poets as well. You are writing texts, and you publish them sometimes with your publishing house or in other places. But there was this idea of futuristic mingas that is like a specific.
But with
ritual.
all the spiders, they feel like that, they can weave actually, and also. With like a new fabric of the world, and the minga, it's not a minga, it's a collective event in South America. I mean, if you have something to do in the village, a road or the roof of a house that fell down, it can be organized a minga. So a minga is a collective event where a lot of people gather to do a work that is needed for the community, but it's not only that, it's a party also. And this is very important, I think. So the little spider, they were weaving like a new fabric for our world, but also invited us for the party. Yeah.
No, yeah, what I don't know where I'm going with that, because we never talked about it before, but it's just looking at, like, listening to you and looking at those different works. I was thinking, in a way, the Anthropocene, I think, for the arts, what it really provoked was, at the time, in 2010, around that time, a way out of the seemingly endless present in which we were living, this prison of the present in the crisis that we are, right? And suddenly we were realizing that there was other temporalities that we are dealing with, that we were not just, living in the endless simulacrum of postmodernity, in a way, that there was much more to that. And I think it brought a lot of practices to reflect on that different temporalities. And more recently, I think there has been these discussions here and there about the work of Steve Goodman, and that's what we never talked about, but his book that is called World Building. And it was a book that was, I think, first published in the 80s, and at the time it was really considered like a formalist art criticism book that nobody really cared about. And more recently, it's a book that has been rediscovered, and with comments by different philosophers, notably I'm thinking about Reza Negarestani, for instance, was insisting on that sentence by Steve Goodman that was, in fact, to invent a new world, you need to invent it from the world you already given. So you need to create a new world, you need to reassemble pieces that are already here in the world you are experiencing. And I think that what I found interesting in that discussion, and that maybe relate to what you're saying about the way you're going to rituals and out of science fiction, that you were saying is just, in a way, extrapolating the problems of all presence in a given future, right? Is that this idea by Steve Goodman, I think it's interesting if you put in the perspective to say, well, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, it was all about science fiction everywhere. It was like all about this ability to imagine the future, right? And suddenly in the world of the Anthropocene, it seems that this imagination collapsed. Like it's just going, like the destruction of the world is going so fast that we can't imagine like this new future that would be, even desirable. Even the dystopia, we seem to be not that able because the present is way more powerful. Like Trump or not even Emmanuel Macron are more powerful, at disaster that our imagination can be. And I think, in a way, what I find interesting in all this work is how you're reshuffling elements that you are taking from different places, but also different times, and how you are reassembling them in order to create new worlds, like new narratives in terms of you're building a world, but it's not just science fiction in the terms that it would be just your imagination somewhere. And I don't know if it's really a question, but...
No.
Or if that
but
makes sense.
about the Anthropocene, well, it's a subject, this last, but before we didn't think too much of that, but we have well understand something, is that we suddenly, when we were in Alaska, we were invited to work there after Norway, and we made a piece there, bringing some wood from the Forest of Solitude in Germany to Alaska in order to create a fabricated archaeological trace for archaeologists in the future. So we want to mislead them. It was kind of joke. And so we brought some wood that didn't exist in Alaska, and also but we worked with archaeologists at this time, and she explained us what to put in our fire in order to really mislead the archaeologists. And it's at this time that we realized, doing that piece, Cedric and I, that our human time is nothing compared to what is the time of Earth, the geological time. And at this point, I mean, we knew, we learned it at school, I mean, but it's something to learn something, and it's something else to really incorporate it, this thinking. And now you know it's really, and this strikes us, and with this conscious of really the time of planet Earth, we took conscious of what could be Anthropocene, for instance. But really, because we did that, we really understand. Because before we knew, but that's all. We were not aware.
And it's funny you're showing a record, because then I was also thinking, seeing your work on the vault, that again, going like science fiction versus world building, let's say, is that in the, I think it was also in the 70s, where you had this idea, like we thought, okay, we are starting to explore outer space, and so there was this idea of putting a record, of launching it into, and on that record, it was the treasure of humanity that we were sending to a potential life forms, but there was really this idea of like, look how great we are. It was like the patrimony of all greatness, in a way. And I think, in a way, this vault is a bit like the kind of disastrous opposite or Janus figure of that record, because now is almost like a sign for the future. Is like, look at all what we destroyed. Yeah. In a way, right? Yeah. And I think the work you're doing about that is a very also kind of, I don't know, like a sad prayer in front of that vault because of that. No?
But no, the vault, we were searching eternity ourselves also near the ark, because we understand also that it's not really seed that they conserve in it. It's more zombie seed, because they freeze the seeds, so you don't know if they're gonna grow, and they don't care, because what they care is genetic material, native genetic material, and that's what we understand after that. I mean, you need really to work on stuff to really understand, because you say, oh, we keep a double of all the seed for food, but no, I mean, maybe you will plant it, it will grow nothing. And they are good at propaganda. For instance, I remember there was this article in the newspaper, there's seeds for the Syrians. They come from here, from the, but actually it's not for the farmer.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of the war.
No, it was big, So it was for the other seed bank that in Syria they are just conserve and bring them back for studies. Or genetic manipulation, but not really for the farmers. So, you need to really take care of it. Yeah, and also it's a protest it's a silent protest, Cedric and I also in front of the board.
Sad prayer and silent protest.
But, and we were, at this time we were visited by a white fox. When we were there, and then later, and we say, wow, and I don't know why we say that, we say, okay, it's Joseph Beuys visiting us. Okay, and because when you say something, because we speak it together, and when you say something, when you activate something, it's true. It's not true. It's real. Voilà. More. It's real. So it's not true, but it's real. And this was real then. And after, in Kotzebue, in Alaska, we didn't know where we're going to work, what we're going to do. And in Kotzebue, we had this visitation, by this time, a red fox. And then we took that as a sign, and we decided, okay, we're going to work there, whatever we're going to do, we need to be there. So sometimes decision is really not, it's completely, so I think we just need sometimes a bit of folie, un grain de folie.